Hey everybody, hope that you guys are doing well. Just waiting for Floyd to join in quickly. So while that happens, just pin this comment. And so we're gonna get started. Just getting Floyd in quick.
Hey,
Hey,
Tafo, what's up, boy?
I'm doing well. Floyd, how you doing?
I'm all good. Let me just quickly adjust this bad boy, just so that
That's
I
all
don't feel like
good.
I'm doing a close-up all day. Let me just go over here. The camera angle just changes a bit when you go live. Okay, awesome. How are you doing, big guy?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
I'm all
It's great to
good. I'm
finally
all
be
good.
here.
Yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, this is. I mean, it's finally coming. I mean, we've been talking about this quite a bit over the past few days. So, I mean, I'm
Yes.
really excited to actually dive into it. And yeah, I see a lot of people are starting to join us, which is
Yeah, that's
awesome.
exciting. No, that's so
So
cool. And how are you doing, by the way? I know you've been working hard.
yeah,
So how was the day?
after the day's been all right. I was in a meeting early on today, so actually now just finished. So yeah, happy to actually be here. But I'm happy, I'm smiling. It's a lovely day in Johannesburg, so all is well. All is well. And yourself?
Ah man, it's been a busy one. As you know, there's no rest for the wicked. So I've been
Mm,
doing all my admin, a lot of paperwork, a lot of planning
that's awesome.
during the course of the day. So now at least after this, we're gonna have a good chat now. Then I'll get on the
Yeah,
phone with my boys, have a catch up with them. So it's
that's
exciting
awesome.
times. It's been a productive
That's
day.
amazing. That's amazing. Floyd, so I think just to kick us off, we've obviously got a lot of people tuning in
Yeah.
live, and we're going to have a lot of people, watching this on YouTube. But I think maybe just to give us a brief overview of, where you're from, where did you grow up, what do you currently do, and maybe just a little bit about, what you're passionate about.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm born and bred in Joburg. I grew up in
Nice.
an area called Bez Valley. For people that are from Joburg that don't know where Bez Valley is, I usually say, you know that part next to Ellis Park, where you
Sorry,
sorry about
Floyd.
that. I think it got cut out. So yeah, so
Yeah.
usually I say to people like, you know, the part that area right next to Ellis Park where you get to park your car.
Mm.
That's where I grew up. So
I love that.
look, right when I grew up, it wasn't such a scary place to be. Really
Mm.
cool place. It was like a melting pot. Like where we grew up, it was every culture race was on each block. So it was an awesome place
Amazing.
to grow up. A really um, exciting place to grow up, but a very real place to grow up. You could meet
That's
people that
awesome.
were going places, and then you met some people that just went down the wrong path. And so
That's awesome.
I grew up in Bez Valley, then was very fortunate to go to a really high quality boys school. I went to Jeppy Boys, so
Mm-hmm.
a school that lies really close to my heart. And then uh, once I'd finished my schooling, decided to go and study. So I went to the University of Witwatersrand, also known as
Mm-hmm.
WITS. Did my Bachelor of Science in Physiotherapy. And then from there, I obviously went into clinical practice. So currently, I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own physiotherapy practice. I've owned that for over 8 years now. And
Mm-hmm.
then professionally, I also work as an entrepreneur. So basically, companies hire me or they employ me to assist with enterprise development. So that's something I'd like to chat about today as well. Is so
Mm.
in I work within their businesses as though it's my own. So I work with that
That's
kind of
awesome.
passion and that kind of
That's really
vision
cool.
so that we can help that business grow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's dive into the topic of entrepreneurship, right? Um,
Yes.
tell me a little bit about your journey within the entrepreneurship field. Where did that sort of passion start? Was it from an early age, or has it sort of come along the way? Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that entrepreneurship journey.
So it's quite interesting. My dad was essentially an entrepreneur, owned a small little driving school.
Mm.
My mom is now an entrepreneur, so she started her own company about 3 years ago. But when I was a kid, I wasn't like a hustler. I was not the kid selling things, and we had a few of those at school.
Yeah.
And I sort of envy them because they learned certain sales skills early on in the
Mm.
piece. But essentially, once I'd finished the whole university route, got everything done, made sure that I got really good marks at
Mm.
university, I then realized that I wanted more control of my future, more control of my destiny. And
Mm.
within our field, within the field of physiotherapy, it's you usually work for someone for quite a long period of time before you go into private practice. And so I knew that there were benefits to that, so that you'd gain some clinical experience,
Yeah.
and learn certain things that you can only learn while working in the trenches. So having known that I want to run my life my way and
Mm.
also gain experience, I essentially then sat down with my now business partner, but then my employer, and I said to him in the first interview, I was like, listen, I want to be able to own relatively soon. What are your feelings about that? Because I don't want to be working for someone for a decade
Mm.
and not have ownership. So
Yeah.
he said to me, and he's an entrepreneur, so he's a property entrepreneur. He said to me in that first engagement when we started, because I'd done some hours for him because I just wanted to learn more. And he
Yeah.
said, when we spoke about, long term, in the first conversation, he said, look, you're a man, you're probably going to have to produce for your household. I get it. So I'll
Mm.
support you on that journey. And then he essentially helped me acquire my first practice after a year within private
Wow.
practice. So that was
That's
that
incredible.
was of all my friends, I think that I qualified with at the same time. I was the first to open a practice, and that was
Mm.
to a large degree because of the assistance that my business partner provided in those early days.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So I mean, inspiring that sort of step to start your own practice. What sort of
Yes.
inspired you to take that step, and how was it actually taking that step? I mean, that must have been scary, and quite daunting as well.
Yeah.
Let's probably talk us through a little bit about the doubts that you probably had, the fears that you had, and how you overcame those to actually start your own practice.
So firstly, I'm quite a driven person. So, and that
Mm.
goes from way back to current. I was always driven. The fear was always going to be there. But in a lot of the entrepreneurship books I was reading, they spoke about analysis paralysis. And I was like,
Yeah.
if I overthink this whole thing, it's going to be a nightmare. I'm never going to get
Yeah.
going. So with that in mind, I decided, I'm going to get going. I just wanted
Yeah.
to get
That's
going,
awesome.
and an opportunity. And usually what happens is, you've got to, there's that book by Branson, it's Screw It, Let's Do It. You've got to
Yeah.
just, when the opportunity arises, you don't know when the next one will come, but you don't know when the next one will come.
Yeah.
So you better jump on it, and you can always learn as you go. But if
Mm.
there aren't any opportunities for 2 years, you're going to sit around and dread the fact that you've lost this opportunity. And
Yeah.
so at that time, an opportunity, the opportunity to open a practice was presented to my business partner, but it wasn't a big enough and secure enough and lucrative enough deal for him. So he
Yeah.
said, "Look, this is the deal. I think this deal fits where you are right now." So then I
Mm.
said, "Cool, let's go for it." And essentially what happened was I then opened the practice. So I'd done all the paperwork, I set the dates, and I ended up having to have an ankle surgery, man.
Oh.
So I went,
Oh.
yeah. So I needed to have an ankle surgery, and that put me out of work for 2 months. So I was in a
Well.
position now where I just opened a new practice,
Mm.
and I hadn't built a clientele in that area. I'd
Yeah.
taken some of my secure employment and said, look, I'm going to sacrifice that so that I can build my own practice. And then I had the surgery, and then my insurance didn't pay out. So I then also went to 2 months of zero income. So that was my introduction to entrepreneurship, man. So, I can laugh about it now, right?
Yeah, but at the
Because
time it wasn't like that.
they, they say experience are things that happen to you that you wish to God happened to someone else.
And I think that
that was
applies at that time. Yeah, that applies 100%.
100%. Yeah, so
Goodness
that was
me.
my introduction to entrepreneurship, but I definitely do not regret it at all. Not at all.
So talk us through some of the challenges that you have faced in sort of not just in the starting of your own practice, but
Yes.
now we're talking more so the running of your own practice, because obviously, yes, it takes incredible amount of courage, incredible amount of drive to start your practice, but it also
Yes.
then takes incredible amount of motivation to keep it going. And I think a quote sort of comes to mind which is, it's not necessarily the level of your motivation that determines whether you'll succeed. It's actually the consistency of your motivation rather than the level, right? So talk us
100%.
through some of the challenges that you've had, running your own practice, and how you sort of surmounted those challenges on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So as I entered the world of clinical practice, private practice, I found that I was at a little bit of a disadvantage, and I'll qualify that. So you're a Saints boy,
Yeah.
as I think some of your viewers will know. So as I started working at Saints, so at this time I'm 22, turning 23.
Yeah.
I'm working with my business partner on the side of the field, right? So as I rock up and we start working, and then my business partner's chatting to one of the moms, and I'm next to him, and we start chatting, and she says to me, she's like, "Oh, are you playing for the first team today?" So she thinks I'm in matric, man. So at that time, I look 18, right? And
Yeah.
so when I would sometimes walk into the waiting area, so like the patient's booked, it's their first appointment with me. So I walk into the waiting area, and the patient's eyes are like, "Oh my God, like, is this dude for real?
Is this really it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny that we're chatting right now. So one of my patients just gave me a call just to ask for some advice, but he's a lawyer, and at the end of his first session, he said, "You know what? I'm so thankful. I was so worried that, when I walked in here, I was like, hey, am I doing community service or what's going on?"
That's hilarious.
You know what I'm saying? So and now, like, I mean, he's someone that, whether he's injured or not, you'll give me a call, just ask for advice and that sort of thing. But at that, because of being thrust into that environment where I would have to earn my stripes a little bit more than some of my peers, I then learned that I've got to over deliver all the time, because if you over deliver consistently, like as you say, right? So I'm in the position now where a lot of my patients rock up and they already trust me because of my reputation. But you don't gain that reputation for free. You've got to earn that reputation. And I think a big problem with social media and the way, so the problem is not social media, right? The problem is the way that we use social media. So you have an 18-year-old guy he just wants a fresh whoop, he wants a rollie, and he wants a ton of money in the bank. So I get that. I was there at the time. There was, I mean, those are the things that you see on hip hop music videos. That's what you're exposed to, and you think, you jump on the gram, some dude is telling you about binary options or something that, and he's he's rented a Lambo.
Get rich scheme,
he's renting his Lambo. He's like showing you that this is the lifestyle, right? And so you think about entrepreneurship in the short term, right? So, and and I was listening to a really impactful talk by Simon Sinek, and he was talking about companies that go the long haul, and they're not about competing in the short term. They're not about that. They're about owning a space and living a message for the long term. And when you think about the long term, you gain a tribe, right? Because the people, the type of people you want are attracted to that, and they will fight for that environment that you're creating and that culture you're creating, and that, whether that be your employees, whether it's your customers. So when you talk about, you said something, that's why I love what you said. It's about the long term, and I think the shortest term that you can look at as an entrepreneurship, so maybe 5 years, where your end game, maybe you've decided, you know, I really like this business, but I don't want to stay in it for a long term. I just want to make it attractive for acquisition. You know, you want to sell it. That's cool, but that's still usually 5 years. Like,
it's not a short process.
Exactly. It's like, it's you when you look at these big unicorns, you need to understand that those are not the rule, those are the exception. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I would say. It's like, so, you know, you learn, initially you learn those tough lessons of how to acquire, but then you've got to do the hardest part, which is keep on delivering. I was actually thinking of wearing a Michael Jordan jersey today, because I love Jordan. But it's a little bit too nippy right now, right? But the thing I love about Jordan is that he was consistent, right? He won how many rings? Because he was consistent. He didn't win one ring.
So if we had to talk, you know, through your journey, and, you know, I think so far, which what you shared with us is incredibly profound. What would you say, if I had to ask you for 2 or 3 key lessons that you've learned throughout either your entrepreneurship journey, but also your career journey as well? What would you say are the sort of key sort of steps or lessons that you've learned throughout?
So the first lesson I would say is that it's very easy to be passionate, to work really hard when you're passionate. So I'm going to say my first lesson is hard work, and I'm going to dovetail that into passion, because then it's not that difficult to work hard. And one thing I do know is that talent is highly, highly, highly overrated. So, you know, the talent is what gets people to fall in love initially. However, you don't stay in love with something that's, you know, all you know, hot air initially and it just fizzles out. So I think hard work is like my number one sort of lesson that I've learned. And then the second lesson is to be tough, like to really be tough, to have a thick skin, because when you're an entrepreneur, you know, and again, this goes to the way certain people portray it. So if you portray it as in, you know, I'm living the dream all day, every day, and that's not what it is, right?
It's not that. No.
That's not what it is.
It's definitely not. No.
You know, like people get angry when they work 9 to 5, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you're going to work 5 till 2, you know, 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. especially when things are bad, and especially when you're starting out. So you've got to work hard, and you've got to be tough, because what's going to happen is people are going to sideswipe you like mad. I've been betrayed in business by people I never expected to betray me. I've been blindsided like you cannot even understand. And I always say thank you that it happened now, because I'm still dealing with like minuscule amounts of money compared to what I'm going to be dealing with. The downside, like right now I'm married. I'm very blessed to be married, and I don't have kids. So you get blindsided when you have kids. It's a whole different ballgame. But you speak to any entrepreneur, and they're going to tell you they have been screwed over by someone, and often that someone was their accountant or friend, right? So it happens. So the second lesson I'd say would be to have a tough skin. The third lesson I've got to think about that, is to make sure that you are highly teachable,
That's
because
really good. Mm.
no matter where you are in time and space, you cannot understand and know it all. So for me, I'm always open to learning. If anything, sometimes I impair my movement because I'm trying to learn too much. It's that whole over intellectualizing the process. But being teachable is super important, because there are people that have been where you want to go, and they've paid the school fees, right? So if you really want to pay school fees, you can pay the school fees. I've always loved the shortcuts where applicable. So, you know, if my business partners, you know, I give my business partner a call. I say, look, I'm in XYZ situation. What do you recommend? And he says, I've been exactly in this position, and this is how it played out. I'm really going to listen to that. And that's why I also really like, you know, reading books, because a lot of the time you read a book and it speaks into you, like into your spirit, because you're open, and then it's like, boom, oh, it hits you, because you've wanted to know, you've been looking, and then it's like, oh, there's the answer. So
Exactly.
I think that teachability is also highly important if you want to move forward as an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Let's talk health and fitness, right? So I know this is something that you are extremely passionate about.
Yes.
You know, so tell me, where did that passion develop? Where did it start? And how did the conception of that passion come about?
So, you know, when we're going to go back a little bit, so I'm going to age myself a little bit. So in grade 1, it was 1995, right? So 1995, the Rugby World Cup hit South Africa, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that? So I'm in grade 1. Now, you know, when the teachers decide, okay, guys, we're going to do a class activity, but they just want to watch the match, right? So the first game was Australia versus South Africa, the opener of the World Cup final.
Yeah.
So, like, everyone in aftercare gets shipped into this classroom, and we're watching. So, you know, after 10 minutes, the kids are like losing their minds. They don't want to watch TV. They cooped up inside. So at halftime, they let everyone go out. I was just like, no way, I'm watching this bad boy, right? So I'm like a grade 1 sitting with all the teachers watching the rugby. And, you know, moving forward into that same championship, the final came around. South Africa against New Zealand in the World Cup final. One of my really good friends, it was his birthday party that day, right? That same day. I was like, so my mom's like, oh, don't you want to go to Cheyenne's birthday party? I'm like, I'm gonna first watch the game.
Yeah.
and
Maybe
I'll
afterwards.
Exactly. I mean, when it got to the point of extra time, my mom still tells the story. Like, while the game was going, I was shivering in front of the TV. And then, you know, Joe Stransky kicks the drop goal, we win the World Cup, right? So I don't regret it at all. I went to the birthday party afterwards. There was still some cake. I mean, we're living the dream, right?
Win-win, right? Win-win.
Exactly, you know. So ever since then, you know, I'd always loved playing sport. So playing sport all the way through. I had an aptitude for accounting. I had an aptitude for logical thinking. So I thought I was going to go into programming. I did a little bit of programming at school, and I was like, no ways, I'm not going to do this. And at that same time that I realized, you know, computer because I thought I was going to work for like EA Sports and make FIFA, right?
The
so
dream.
I thought, yeah, I live the dream. You know,
The absolute dream. And you get to test your product, right? You get to test
you know
it. Like, okay.
There was no Fortnite. You know, no kid, like everyone's house. In everyone's house, there was FIFA, right?
Exactly.
So I realized, you know, this whole FIFA thing's not going to happen. Accounting, definitely, I wasn't keen for that. And I got absolutely destroyed in a rugby match. Like, wow. I was playing fly half, and during this game, these dudes, just these two flankers had a field day. Hey, my back was toast. So I'm like, I can barely walk. I'm down in Paul, you know, one of the rugby meccas of the world. I missed my first ever game. So until that point of under 16, I'd never missed a game. So I missed the last game of this festival. I get up to Joburg. They're like, listen, you need to go to the physio. So I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know what the physio is. I get there. So my coach takes me right to the physio. So I get there. Oh, wow. This woman was beautiful. I was like, what? I love this thing. What is physio? I don't know what physio is, but I love this thing. So I'm like, I get there and wow, she was so professional, so precise in her assessment. She was so particular in her management. And, you know, I was playing the next game. So I was like, you know, this is quite cool. It's like you're dealing with people that are athletic. You helping them get back to play. Like you're surrounded by people that are driven the whole time. I was like, this is just awesome.
It's an amazing environment.
Exactly. So from there, I then decided, you know, let's get focused, you know, because where I went to school, we went to school pretty much to play sports. We didn't, like, now it's very different. The school's far more academically inclined, and actually, let me say, more balanced. There's a lot of really good academics and like insane sportsmen. I worked with some of the best sportsmen I've ever witnessed at that school. But at that time, you know, academics were completely in the rear view mirror. So now
everything was sport.
I've got it. Yeah, exactly. Now I've got a goal, and once I've got a goal, I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not going to let go. So then I got into WITS, right? And WITS, I mean, it's a phenomenal program that they run. And so that was where the whole health and fitness shifted from being an athlete into being a professional. And, you know, I decided it's actually far easier for us as physios to move into a very the orthopedic route where it's like a lot of hip replacements, knee replacements, because I mean, there are tons of them every year. It's a very stable sort of model, but that's not where my passion lies. So I decided to take a slightly different route and focus on the athletes, and I don't regret it. I've met some incredible athletes over the years.
I'm sure. So, you know, just touching on that, you know, you've obviously got into contact with some really incredible athletes, and, you know, you know, treating them and them coming to your practice. What are some of the sort of big lessons that you've learned from them, you know, from the interactions with them and, you know, being in that environment?
Yeah, there are a few lessons, right? So it's very different working with youth athletes versus your young, I'll say your professional athletes that's between the years of 1 to 5 and still establishing themselves, and then the athlete that's the masters athlete. So when I look at a masters athlete, let me start with that because I think it's the most important. When you meet, and when I say, let me not say masters athlete, let me say a highly experienced player that is playing still at the professional level, not at masters amateur level, professional.
Absolutely top.
Your tip top professional athlete that's playing in his mid-30s in a sport like rugby is someone who took their body very seriously from the beginning. Now, I remember speaking to one of the pro physios, and it was a bit of a loaded question because I knew he'd worked with Stefan Blanche, right? And so I'd met Stefan Blanche the year after his retirement, and like for a very brief period. And he was doing like a charity sort of tournament. And at that time, I mean, he was just in incredible shape. I mean, the dude must have been 38. And I was like, this dude is so shredded. He's so
He's got a 25-year-old's body,
there were varsity cup and super rugby players in that setup. And he was fitter than all of them. So I was like, geez, man. So when I spoke to this other physio, I was like, just as a, like, who was the most professional athlete you ever worked with? And he, boom, without thinking, Stefan.
Immediately.
Because he was professional before professional rugby existed. He was looking after his body professionally before it existed. And if you look at his record. I don't know if you know, Stefan Blanche in his first test match, his test debut, he scored 4 tries. He scored 4 tries in his first test match against Ireland, not against like some like really
not
Ireland.
Yeah, an
right?
insane team.
So, exactly. So from a master's athlete's perspective, I've learned that you've got to look after your body from the beginning, because you know, usually you don't get to the end if you if you don't look after your body.
Yeah, exactly.
With the youth athletes, the best rugby team I ever worked with, currently there are probably 5 pro rugby players from that team, right? Man, they had the most fun. Like, I promise you, there was such an awesome bunch of players to work with, because they were gifted. They were so gifted naturally, but their coaches worked them really hard. Like, they worked really hard, but they were fun. When you were on the field with them, you could tell that they were loving what they were doing. And I think that's so important for anyone that is on a health, fitness type journey, is to enjoy the process. You know, when people come into my rooms, often they'll say, okay, what type of exercise should I do? For certain cases, I have to give them ultra specific guidance, for most cases, right? But a lot of the time I'll say, you know, in addition to that, you know, the best exercise is the exercise that you'll do. And you'll usually do something that you enjoy. So I think, you know, lesson from those youth athletes is that the best youth athletes that I've worked with love what they do, right?
That's amazing.
And then from those athletes that are between the 1 and 5 year sort of span, the lesson I've learned is, you know, you've got to just keep working like a slave. You've got to work like a slave to live like a king. That is literally it, because they're in a very challenging position where they haven't been established. So if they are out for prolonged periods of time, they could lose their spot. Whereas your experienced guy knows he can rest in certain periods. They're more sort of accommodating. So with those athletes that really want it, and everyone's against it till the real gangster walks in the building, right? So, you know, everyone says, yeah, I want to be a pro athlete.
Yeah, until that person who wants to be a pro is actually in the room. it's like okay, actually.
Exactly. You know, it's like watching this Jordan documentary. One of the best NBA players of all time says, you know, when Jordan was at the Lakers as a rookie, they're like, he was like, yeah, man, I was better than Jordan for about 2 weeks. Because Jordan outworked him, right?
Just work.
And when you're in that phase from 1 to 5 years, sometimes you are better, but you don't. The player in front of you is built a reputation, so you got to earn your stripes. So
that's
for
really good.
The lessons that I've learned from those athletes is that whether it's business, whether it's your corporate life, whether it's relationships, all of those things, those first few years, man, you've got to slog, you've got to earn your right to be there. The world owes you nothing, right? The world owes you nothing. So you've got to earn the right to be there. And again, you know, life is a game where you've got to pay rent every day. So you earn the right to be there, and then staying there is even harder. So you want to work even harder than that.
That's awesome. That's incredible. That's really, really profound, Floyd. And I think thanks so much for sharing that. To change this topic slightly, so your own sort of health and fitness routine. I've had lots of questions, and you know, it's lockdown at the moment. You know, people are scared about gaining weight. How do you keep your own sort of health and fitness in shape? So particularly now in the lockdown time, you know, how do you keep that consistently going? How do you motivate yourself to just keeping your fitness up to shape? And you know, coupled with that, your diet as well. I've also had lots of questions around your diet, which I'm just going to lump into one. It's just tell us a little bit about your diet. Tell us a bit about you know, your success in that field as well.
Yeah, so it's very important to realize that. Okay, so let's start with lockdown. So I cannot lie. I am super blessed. my practice is equipped with a gym. I've built a gym within my practice because I'm training athletes. So I want to see what they look like when they're doing what they're doing. So from an exercise perspective, I've just been really consistent with training at my practice as opposed to where I usually train. And actually what I've learned since this whole thing started, this whole COVID-19 pandemic, I've decided that I'm going to actually train there for the long term. Now, when I don't train at the gym, I train at home. And when I train at home, I'm now training with my wife. And it's been quite awesome because it's a great time to spend time together and, you know, gain and build a relationship and also stay fit. As far as my training regime goes, it varies. So I'm with my diet and my exercise regimen all vary depending on the goals at that time. So I'll give you an example. So in the last 3 years, I've been competing in powerlifting socially. So if I'm training for powerlifting, I will create programs to help me squat, deadlift, and bench a lot. My body, my physique will completely change because I don't care about my physique at that time. I'm training primarily for my strength gains. So now that I've decided, well, there's no competitions anytime soon. So what I've done now is that I'm focusing on training for my physique. So what because I don't take steroids or any performance enhancing drugs. So when you train naturally, you've got to train the same body parts slightly more frequently in a week than someone that's using a performance enhancing drug. So so how I train currently is on a Monday, I'll do a push day. Tuesday, I'll do a pull day. Wednesday, I'll do like my core, glutes, hams, like a lot of floor work because I'll like do those types of exercises to build my stability. Then on the Thursday, I'll do again a push day. On the Friday, I'll do a pull day. When I do my push and my pull, I do full body push and pull. So on my push day, I'll be doing chest work, shoulder work, triceps work, quads work. On my pull day, I'll be doing more back, biceps, hammies, glutes. So that's where I cover all the sections of my body. And then if, you know, depending on the how my physique's looking at the time, I can then top up with certain, maybe hit the same body part 3 times because that body part's lagging. So it'll just depend on where I am at that time. So what I'll do is I'll put it out there. So anyone that, if you would like me to put out like a training program of some kind, and a diet / eating plan out of some kind, put it in the comments, and then I'll look at doing that and putting it up on the net and making that available. And then as far as my eating goes, it depends on where I am. So currently I've decided, you know, from Monday I need to get down 10 kilos from now till the end of the year, just because I'm focusing more on my health. So when I decide on how, because I've also seen a lot of fads go through, you know, over professional career of over 10 years, you see a lot of fads like dietary, exercise, all of those things.
Yes.
So, you know, from my standpoint, yes, you have outliers. So people with hormonal issues, metabolic issues, all of those things, right? But for the vast majority of the populace, if you want to lose weight, you've got to get a caloric deficit, meaning the amount of calories that you're burning, you've got to put in less than that, of about 500 calories, right? So that's the rule of thumb. There are outliers. This is not medical advice. This is, if you go and read papers, you're going to see pretty much this. Your macronutrients and micronutrients, though, those often dictate how you're going to feel, right? So if you starve yourself, you'll lose weight. But if you're not getting the nutrients in, you're going to feel like you're going to feel terrible. You're going to cause health issues. So my whole thing would be, the way I usually set up my eating plan is that I'll get protein in. For me to look the way I want to look, I'll usually take my body weight, multiply it by 2, and then I'm going to put that much protein in grams. So if I'm weighing 90 kilos, I'm going to put 180 grams of protein in a day. And then I'm going to go, if I want to lose weight, I'm going to drop my macros by about my calories by about 500 a day, so that I can lose my weight. And then on my micronutrients, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just try, when I'm filling that calorie amount, I'm gonna put as much green leafy veg, because my body doesn't, I gain weight and I gain size if I put in a lot of starchy stuff. So I'll put in a lot of greens and veg as much as possible in my calorie allowance. And then I'll supplement with omega-3s. I'll supplement with a calcium and magnesium. I just find that my body feels a lot better. There is some literature around calcium, magnesium, and zinc. And then I'll also use creatine for my strength. So strength, and it also has shown to help with your muscle strength, your muscle hypertrophy, and also a few other variables. But I mean, again, with a lot of these things, it's not a silver bullet. It's not a one size fits all. There's in most studies, they show about 25% of people don't respond well to creatine, for example. So that's I'm not giving that as an advice to anyone. I'm saying that's what I do.
But that's what you do.
Yeah. So currently, you're looking at a push-pull split training-wise, 5 days a week. And then on the other side, you're looking at a dietary caloric deficit of about 500, but looking at after my micronutrients. And then one of the things that I find help the most when I'm looking to shred and get that December vibe going, you know, that summer body going, is just walk. Because even though my job is active, I'm not walking a lot. So I try to get, if I get an hour walk in, and so this also depends on how busy work is and all the rest of it. If I start taking an hour walk a day over a period of 2 months, it's, the fat just melts off, because your basal metabolic rate, the amount of energy your body's using while you're resting, is just going up. And then your calories are not very high, and then you start to lose all that, all the TLC on the side, you know, all those love handles, bro.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Floyd.
I hope that covers the question.
I think it does in a lot of detail. And I think a lot of people will be really, really helped by that. To finish off, I want to talk about one topic, you know, that we are going to touch on, which is mental health, and sort of your comments around that and advice for people in the field of mental health at the moment, particularly right now, the lockdown situation, where a lot of things are uncertain, where a lot of, I suppose, there's a lot of doubt, a lot of negative news out there as well. And the future doesn't necessarily look too bright, and the situation is dire for some who may have lost family members who are sick themselves as well. What advice would you give to people in sort of the mental health aspect?
So this is a topic very close to my heart, because someone very close to me has struggled with this issue not too long ago. And I want to sort of divide this conversation into two, right? So I think there's, you know, when you have tried to self-manage and you're not gaining, you're not winning, and things are not, you're going down a path that you don't feel that you have the expertise to manage. I am so pro psychologists, psychiatrists. I am so pro. I cannot emphasize that enough, because you know, I'm a professional person, so I go to university, I learn, I gain expertise in a certain topic and subject. And so for me, the way I think about it is that, you know, the same way I see patellofemoral pain, whatever, you know, every day, that person deals with depression, anxiety every single day. So if you are down this rabbit hole and it feels like a dark place, I'm ultra pro going getting professional help. And for me personally, whenever I just feel like, you know, I can't say that I've had any big psychiatric issues. I just you know, when I get into a funk where my performance, for example, let's say at work, I'm just not able to focus as well, I'm stressed, and I've tried to self-manage and I'm not getting there, I just go to my psychologist. I see her once and I feel like a freaking rock star. I can take on the world, because she's giving me a perspective that I just don't have. Now,
awesome.
so that's for the side where it's like, you know, it's more the let me say the more medical side of the spectrum. For the average Joe Soap, I think my approach is so this is my personal approach, is that I, number one, invest into myself heavily. So, you know, I'm always listening to really high quality podcasts, high quality YouTube channels, reading high quality books, where it's like it frames your mind to see the opportunity. So for COVID, for example, I'm seeing more opportunity right now than I've ever seen in my whole life. But that's because I'm looking for the opportunity. And the best analogy I can give you is, if someone says, okay, look, we'll use South African main roads because, you know, we're both from South Africa. So if someone says to you, okay, 8 o'clock prime time traffic, no COVID, right? 8 o'clock prime time traffic, you stand on Witkoppen, right?
Yeah.
And you have to count for an hour the number of white cars, right?
Yeah.
And if you get that down to the T, you get 5 million rand. I promise you, you'll get a notepad and you'll make sure you get every single white car, because you want that 5 bar, right?
Yeah.
But if the guy rocks up to you after the 1 hour and he says, I made a mistake, I meant blue, you're not going to gain it, right? And that's what happens with your mind. That's what happens with your mind, because you
really
focus, you get what you focus on. And so with COVID, it's hard, it's tough, it's difficult, it's challenging. However, there are opportunities out there. And so I think that mindset comes from a constant inundation of, because, you know, you spoke about the negative news. It's, you know, someone's brainwashing someone all the time. Right?
Yes.
So I'm just like, I'm gonna bring wash myself with positivity,
right?
Right? So I think, you know, if you're highly proactive about managing your attitude, I think it puts you in positive state. I think the people that you surround yourself with is so important. I cannot overemphasize that, because if you're dealing with people that are always telling you about the negative, what's wrong with the world, that's what you're going to see. And so I've surrounded myself, and, you know, I've got a lot of my friends, some of my friends I've had since 1995, you know, so it's been a long time. And then my newer friends that have come along the ride, they all have this, I'll call it a Mamba nut mindset, right? So they're there to win. They're there to make things happen, right? And so the powerful thing about that is that when I'm down, they can lift me up. And when they're down, I can lift them up. And I think those factors, it's like you've got your self-management in terms of, you know, you're reading, you're watching what you need to watch, whatever. The best way you can consume that information is the one side. And then your support structure. I've got an awesome wife. My wife, I mean, she pushes me and she helps me do things I'd never otherwise do. And my friends, and again, mentors. And when you're hungry for this type of thinking, you find more and more people like that. And there are tons of people that want to help, but they don't find people that want to be helped in this way, with this type of thinking. So when you want to be helped, a dude that you randomly meet at a coffee shop, he's like, you start talking to him and you start to resonate on these same thought processes. Boom, you created a positive relationship. So mental health, I think, is super important. I'm so glad that so many people are doing such great work around it. And I think, that's my piece on it.
That's really, really, really profound. I want to touch on, I think, two more questions. The first one is pretty much, what are your goals for the next 6 months? That's one of the questions that I think has come through. A lot of people are really curious about that. What are you aiming for in the next 6 months?
Cool. So I'm gonna lay it out. So first, I need to drop this 10 kilos, right? Because I just want to, I want to be rocking that holiday shred and feeling a little bit lighter. I'm
good.
feeling quite healthy right now and strong,
Mm.
but I just feel like that's what I need to do. So from a physical perspective, that's one thing I need to do. Then from a business perspective, I want to optimize my practice. I want to get better systems in place. So I'm working on that currently. I want to try drop my admin time outside of clinical time to 1 hour a week. So
awesome.
that's a big goal. So I want to optimize my time. Then with my entrepreneurial ventures, there are 3 projects that we're currently running that I want to close the circle. I want to complete those projects, make them highly successful, deliver, add massive value, add massive, massive value to the people that we're talking to. And then the last goal is wild, because at the beginning of the year, I said I'm going to open 2 more profitable businesses, and I'm not going to say what businesses they were, right?
Yeah.
But basically, if I had started those businesses now, they would have been closed during lockdown, right?
Wow.
So I've had to change my thinking,
Had to rethink,
so I've got these 2 plans that I'm working on now, and by the end of this year I need to open those 2 businesses. So those are my goals for the remainder of the year. I've got some. I also have spiritual goals, relationship goals, family goals, but those for this conversation are the most pertinent.
That's awesome. That's incredibly inspiring. And the last question, Floyd, before I let you go, what books would you recommend for someone who is starting their entrepreneurship journey? I'll say books, but I'll also say podcasts as well. So both books and podcasts.
Epic. So as far as entrepreneurship goes, you go through different phases in the life of your business. Your business is like a living body, right? So if you at different stages, you're going to learn different things. So for someone who is trying to figure out why they should be an entrepreneur and if it's the right thing to do and the way to think about entrepreneurship, I'd say Rich Dad Poor Dad would be my first book, because it gives you a nice broad understanding of why and how different types of businesses actually fit into the puzzle. If you have an existing business and you have not created structure and systems, I'd say my recommendation is by Michael Gerber. It's called The E-Myth. It's a phenomenal book because it helps you to think about your business like a big organization and helps you to understand the difference between working in your business and working on your business. So, not being a technician, like freaking just working head down, but also being a visionary and helping build that business.
That's awesome.
The other book, the other book I'd recommend is, if your business is struggling with deciding on whether it's time to grow or not, there's a book called Profit First. It's a brilliant book because it helps you to understand the risk benefits of growth through understanding the numbers. Okay. And then as far as podcasts go, I'd say a very nice podcast that just gives you a lot of different sort of understandings of business and the way that different businesses approach the different approaches. I'd say Entrepreneur on Fire, so EOF. I think that's a really good podcast. Really JLB does a great job over there. And then I'll just add, because you asked for podcast, but let me just over deliver. YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Definitely Valuetainment by Patrick David.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a brilliant podcast. There's certain episodes I wouldn't recommend to some people, but the entrepreneurship, when it's the core is entrepreneurship, I mean, he's brilliant at it. So those would be my recommendations on resources.
That's awesome. Floyd, this has, I think, been so phenomenal. This has been a rich episode. So much knowledge that you've imparted. I think I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I wish I wasn't holding my phone so I could take notes. But I'll definitely rewatch this episode myself, because this. I think we've spoken about so many important topics, so many important points, and I know, you and I have had conversations offline, and we've gone a lot deeper than this. So I'd be really keen, sometime if we could do a part two, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And we can, dive deeper on some topics. And I know a lot of people would absolutely love that. But, this has been really, really good. And I'm seeing you getting some love in the comments, which is awesome. You fully deserve that. You've been phenomenal. I think you've really imparted some pearls of wisdom on us. And I think we all really are excited to see these next 6 months,
Yeah,
for you
brother.
to achieve, for
Nothing
you to
wrong.
achieve the goal. And we're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to when we can have our next coffee when we're allowed to go outside again.
Yeah, dude.
It'll
The
be awesome.
cappuccino. Oh man. Oh,
It'll be
the
awesome to
good.
have that sometime soon. I see
Exactly.
a lot of, some people saying you really need a part two. There will be a part two. We got to do this again. This has been
We'll do
awesome.
it. We'll do
I
it. It's like a good
absolutely loved
boxing. It's like a good boxing thing, right? You're gonna have a second or
Absolutely.
rematch.
Absolutely. We got to go again. This has been phenomenal. I think the only problem is we just don't have enough time to talk about it all. But I think,
Yeah.
this has been really, really good. And so I'd like to thank you for coming onto the show, for
Thanks so
being a
much,
really,
brother.
really
Thanks so
good
much for
guest.
having me, and thanks so much for everyone as well.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody for watching. And Floyd, I'll definitely, chat to you again soon. We'll probably chat just after this, but
Yeah.
thank you so much once again, and see you again very soon.
Thanks so much, and thanks so much, everybody. Tupper, you the man, brother.
Thanks, Floyd. Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers.
All right. So thank you everybody for joining in. This was really, really cool. And yeah, episode 3 I think was phenomenal. As just like the other episodes, but yeah, I'll be announcing episode 4 very, very soon. Very excited to announce that, and I hope that you guys have loved this live. There's plenty more to come. We're just getting started, so I'm really, really excited to announce the next one. But yeah, watch out on my profile for the video afterwards, but also check out the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Impactful Conversations. So if you just search that in YouTube or Google, you'll find the YouTube channel there. Please remember to like and subscribe as well. We've also got a Facebook page, which is Impactful Conversations as well. There'll be lots of communication and content there as well. But otherwise, you can catch everything pretty much on my profile, on my story. You'll be able to catch everything. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. So until next time, cheers and bye bye.